Tanzim, and you're watching Access Point. Hello and welcome. A new book on Pakistan once again raises allegations that the country supports terrorism. The New York Times correspondent Carlotta Gall covered Afghanistan and Pakistan for 10 years. Her book, The Wrong Enemy, will be out next month. The Times published excerpts of the book and, as expected, they raised a storm in Pakistan. Ms. Gall wanted to join us, but she is not allowed to speak to media until the book is out. She will join us on April 4th once the book is out to answer all of our questions. Make sure you send your questions for her to our Facebook pages. But for now, I saw only 3 things in the extracts that I thought were new. Number 1, that there was an ISI desk assigned to manage Osama bin Laden. Number 2, that former DG ISI General Shuja Pasha knew about bin Laden's whereabouts. And number 3, that former President and Army Chief General Pervez Musharraf had a meeting with his top 10 commanders, and they discussed a militant plot to get Benazir Bhutto killed. But we'll focus on these and also talk about other allegations of support of Afghan Taliban. But first, let's meet our guests. Dr. Thomas Lynch is a South Asia expert at the National Defense University. Kamran Shafi is a columnist for the Express Tribune. He's joining us via phone from Lahore. He's also a former major of Pakistan Army. And Mateen Haider is a senior correspondent for Dawn News, who's joining us from Islamabad. Welcome to Access Point. And in a little while, we'll be joined by Dr. Raza Bukhari, the official spokesman for General Pervez Musharraf. Let's start with the first issue. As I mentioned, Ms. Gall writes, the ISI actually ran a special desk assigned to handle bin Laden. It was operated independently, led by an officer who made his own decisions and did not report to a superior. He handled only one person, bin Laden. Dr. Lynch, what do you think?
Well, Aisha, thank you for having me here again. And just to note that my comments will be based upon my research at the National Defense University, not as an official position of the United States government, the Department of Defense, or my employer, the National Defense University. First, let me say I look forward to Carlotta Gall's book. I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with Carlotta as she's worked in Afghanistan and Pakistan and India over the last decade or so, and I consider her an intrepid and excellent reporter. And I would also add that I think what she'll provide will be exceptionally good on Afghanistan and the leadership in Afghanistan and how that trajectory over the last 10 years has proceeded. And part of that will no doubt be the fact that Afghans have a very jaded view of Pakistan. Most Afghans, especially those around President Karzai and ones that I've worked with over my time there, really believe that Pakistan can do more and should do more and has not done anywhere near enough in the succession of leaders, Musharraf, the PPP, and now the PMLN, to counteract the Taliban and counteract their sanctuary. And I think the flavor that'll probably come through in Carlotta's narrative, given what I know of her sources and the way she works things. I'm not sure, though, that Carlotta's sourcing in Pakistan is robust enough to tell us really at this point that there, first of all, was definitely this kind of a desk in ISI. Secondly, if such a thing did exist, if in fact this may be shading on innuendo, and that is maybe it wasn't designed to track bin Laden, maybe it was designed to gather information that people may have about where or if bin Laden was somewhere, and therefore it was an information management shop, not a manage bin Laden shop. And there are other permutations of what that might be that would, if not be exculpatory, at least say that, Pakistan wasn't managing bin Laden. It was trying to find out information on bin Laden, as you would expect a Secret Service agency engaged in the war on terror and an ally of America in the war on terror to be doing. So I think there's much more to this than we see right now in these excerpts. I'm anxious to see what the background justification is, but I'm suspicious that there's less here than has been claimed in the initial releases.
And we'll ask her this question when she joins us on April 4th. Mr. Shafi, what do you think? Your initial reactions?
Well, all I can say is that when I read in today's papers in Pakistan that the National Security spokesperson in Washington, D.C. said they had no proof whatsoever that Musharraf and Pasha or Pasha and Pervez
Kiani, you mean?
The Chief Army Staff had any conversations on this. They had no idea at all. What can I say? I can say nothing at all. I mean, this is what the National Security Council spokesman of the U.S. is saying. So where do we go from here is what I want to know.
Do you think, Mr. Shafi, that the United States government, the National Security Council spokesperson, is being honest with Pakistanis and Americans for that matter?
Well, I don't know. Only she can tell you. All I'm saying is that if such huge charges are being placed at Pakistan's door, then the Americans ought to stand up and say that they heard such and such conversation or not. Because we do know that the U.S. Listens to virtually every telephone conversation between A, X, Y, Z, whoever, anybody, which carries certain sort of names such as Bin Laden, terrorism, president, U.S., Pakistan, Afghanistan, all of that. There's somebody in the NSA listening to all of this. So if they are, can they please tell us what they heard? But if it is cogent, I will believe it. But I have nothing to go on, if you see what I mean.
Okay, but the history is that the U.S. government hasn't been honest about the drone program. They never officially said Pakistanis have given us the go-ahead. We always heard about it in books like this and in New York Times and Washington Post stories, Dr. Lynch.
Well, yes, and I mean, as we've discussed before on these programs, and I'm sure your other guests from Pakistan have too, there has not been a overabundance of complete truth-telling going on here between the two countries. And that's unfortunate, and I think that does, in fact, need to change. But I would align myself with the comments of Mr. Shafi that, you know, I think long ago, if we had reasonable and decent grounds to believe there was a direct linkage between ISI and Bin Laden and his immediate handlers, that we would have seen much more of that in the open, in public diplomacy. Okay. There would have been an absolute pursuit of a smoking gun, so to speak, if there was one established by our intelligence community. And to me, that says that we've not done that. We've not been able to prove that. We've been able to prove things that link at the second or third order, right? Contacts in Fatah with certain militants that ISI has contact with, that couriers from Bin Laden had contact with, et cetera, et cetera. But that is far from a claim that ISI managed Bin Laden, far from a claim that the head of ISI, Pasha, knew where Bin Laden was. These claims are very far removed from what I think we believe we know and what Pakistan actually knew.
And Pakistan's ISI, or at least their official spokesperson at ISPR, have denied these claims. Mr. Mateen Haider, your initial reactions, do you think that Carlotta Gall has taken a lot of speculations over the past 10 years and she's provided something extra this time, or is it still speculation?
So, well, whatever she has written, definitely this is all from their information, which from their source. But I'll definitely, whatever Mr. Karnan Shafi has said, I'll endorse his viewpoint that United States security and intelligence agencies have access to each and everything. Right, they have access to the telephone calls of the Pakistani officials. They have access to emails. They have access to images, and definitely whatever they want, definitely they can get it. So because of definitely unlimited resources. So now United States has to come up with a clear-cut statement at the highest level whether OBL was hiding in Pakistan or he there like that. So
okay, so
still, yes, let me finish. There are contradictory statements within the United States, right? There have been denials, there have been accusations, and at the same time there have been allegations on Pakistan as well. So whatever conversation I had with the serving and ex-military officials in Pakistan, they believe so that nobody knew about the presence of Osama bin Laden, and it was United States Chairman Chief Admiral Mullen who informed General Kiani on the same morning when U.S. Marines conducted that operation. This is what they believe. So, and later in the same day, then there was a meeting at the Pakistani presidency, which was by General Kiani and Air Chief Marshal, and it was presided over by President Asif Ali Zardari. In that meeting, it was also discussed that nobody knew about whether Osama bin Laden used to live over there or not.
Okay.
So whatever she has written, it is all about speculation, and there is no confirmed or authentic report. Yes, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Haider. Now, she's also written something else naming the former head of ISI, General Ahmed Shuja Pasha. Let me read to you what she said. She says, a Pakistani official told me that the United States had direct evidence that the ISI chief, Lieutenant General Ahmed Shuja Pasha, knew of bin Laden's presence in Abbottabad. The information came from a senior United States official, and I guessed that the Americans had intercepted a phone call of Pasha's or one about him in the days after the raid. Dr. Lynch, this comes back to NSA listening to everything. They, according to Ms. Gaul, heard a phone call, but then decided to keep it secret because they didn't want to mess up relationships with Pakistan further.
Well, Aisha, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that I'd appreciate doing here. And the first is to debunk the myth that the NSA or the United States knows everything. And I know that many of my Pakistani friends feel that way. They're not alone. Others feel that way. But let me tell you, having worked for some of the people that are in this conversation, Admiral Mullen, folks in the United States government at highest levels, this is not an all-knowing, godlike society. There is much that we do not know. But in the case of bin Laden, we went to great lengths to find out as much as was possible to know. And I will just tell you that having worked at that time in those circles, we had no evidence whatsoever that General Pasha or General Kayani or General Musharraf before him knew where bin Laden was. As a matter of fact, if there was any concern, it was a concern that Pakistan was not asking enough of the right questions at that higher level to find out what they didn't know, that there was a disinterest, a desire to not know more, to be able to have that distance while not assaulting those areas. So that's very different here, you see.
Could that desire to not know have stemmed from, well, we want plausible deniability?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a practice that is not unheard of in many countries, and I don't think it's unheard of in Pakistan either. So I think that's an important note here. So to go to what we have from Carlotta, and again, I'm anxious to read her book because she's very thorough normally, and I think she's very intrepid as a reporter. But that quote that you read, that says she heard from somebody who heard from somebody that this happened. Now, that normally doesn't meet the threshold of the standards of fully accountable journalism. And maybe my colleagues, in Pakistan who do the journalism business can comment to that as well. But that's not enough to say that this is conclusive or decisive or goes against the other bits and pieces we think we know, which is that there was an absence, a blind spot at the higher levels of Pakistan about these very senior people.
Okay, and I'm going to come back and basically talk a little more about what it means that bin Laden was found in Abbottabad. But you mentioned General Musharraf, and we happen to have General Musharraf's official spokesperson with us. Dr. Raza Bukhari is joining us via Skype from Pennsylvania. And Dr. Bukhari, welcome to Access Point.
Thank you, Aisha, for having me on your program.
Dr. Bukhari, one thing that Ms. Gaul writes in her book is informers had told the Afghans of a meeting of army commanders, Musharraf and his 10 most powerful generals, in which they discussed a militant plot to have Bhutto killed. Would you like to comment on this?
Aisha, this is such an unsubstantiated, reckless, and a preposterous statement that it doesn't even dignify a response. Having said that, I think this is, we completely reject it. It is just done in poor sense. It is meant to defame the name and tarnish the name of General Musharraf. And I must, say that Pakistan military is a professional entity. It is not a banana republic. It has long history that finds its genesis from hundreds of years of its service from within the British traditions. And it is not something that goes around in schemes to eliminate people. Actually, I may also want to insert right here, in Pakistan, which is undisputedly known, that military has interfered and has stepped in and ruled. All its interference whenever it does is bloodless. Pakistan military does not have the tradition of eliminating people.
Okay, well, some people will argue with that because we have Balochistan, we have the instances of torture and dump policies. But let me bring in Mr. Kamran Shafi here. Mr. Shafi, do you feel that such a meeting was possible? Is that how the military higher-ups operate, or what do you think?
Well, the military higher-ups meet every so often, almost every month. What they discuss, we don't know. All we know is what the ISPR puts out. But I would say again, I mean, let's not go into the rhetoric of Musharraf's party or what Musharraf himself is or is not. Musharraf is nothing compared to the state of Pakistan. And I really want to bring this discussion back to the interference of the state of Pakistan, or the effect of the state of Pakistan on Osama bin Laden being there or not. That is what we have to talk about. Musharraf is neither here nor there. He is a nobody. He has proved himself to be a nobody by not even appearing in court. And so let's leave him aside. He simply doesn't count. What really counts is Pakistan, a country of 210 million people now, I'm sure, good people, hardworking people, people who want to get on with their lives, educate their children. They're not yahoos who want to blow up other people, and all this terrorism is now put upon our heads as if we were all terrorists. My daughter goes to school every day in Lahore, and I worry whether she'll come back alive or not. So let's get off this nonsense about just Musharraf or just this or just that. It is Pakistan we're talking about. Pakistan is an alive, vibrant society, and Pakistanis are doing well, if only they'll be allowed to. And can everybody start telling the truth now, please?
Okay, so
since you're talking Security Council. Thank you.
Since you're talking about bringing the debate back to Pakistan, let's bring it back to Pakistan. Mr. Mateen Haider, I'd like to come back to you. You mentioned that you know from your sources that nobody in Pakistan knew about it, that General Kiani didn't know about it. He was informed by Admiral Mullen after the raid happened where bin Laden was. If they didn't know, that is beyond incompetence. That's a national security issue for Pakistan, and that issue has not been resolved. Why is Pakistani media not raising that issue? Why is it coming from the West?
No, so there is question marks, definitely. If the Pakistani establishment didn't know about the presence of Osama bin Laden, Pakistani media did discuss about it. There have been discussions, there have been articles. But the most unfortunate part of this entire episode is that Pakistan has been taken by the Western and American media. So whenever they say something, it is believed. Any proof without any evidence that it is Pakistan is the hub of terrorism, it is the safe havens of the terrorism. Same is done. So as Mr. Shafi said, it's a wonderful country, peaceful country, although terrorism is a problem, and terrorism and the terrorists are the joint enemies of and Pakistan. And
Mr. Haider,
there is no doubt about it. But this is most unfortunate thing that whenever any American columnist or American journalist says something without even any substance, without any proof, it is widely believed that, oh, well, so-and-so was living in Pakistan, something like this.
Mr. Haider, there may not be substance to believe certain particulars about this, but what more proof do you need than 50,000 Pakistanis dead? I mean, terrorism is in the heartland.
Yes, I do agree with you that more than 50,000 Pakistanis got killed at the hands of definitely terrorists, at the hands of
so tell me, let me ask you one more thing, then you can answer me. Tell me then, when that is the truth, that is a fact, more than 50,000 Pakistanis dead, and then you have a book out, particulars may be wrong, but these speculations have been out. Overall, the theme may be right. Why is it that, particularly in the Urdu media in Pakistan, I see a huge backlash, questioning the credibility of the journalists, saying, oh, she's always written bad about Pakistan, you know, she's anti-Pakistan, rather than saying we have these national security issues that we need to resolve? Why isn't that happening?
Definitely, there have been gray areas on the part of Pakistan's national security. There have been issues, there have been problems, and there is no doubt that these question marks have to be answered. Definitely, the gray areas have to be removed. There have been definitely certain loopholes in our national security policies. Definitely, there have been problems, but it doesn't mean that Pakistani establishment has some sort of linkage with the terrorist organization. And as it was mentioned in the book that there was a separate desk dealing with OVL. There have been desks at Inter-Services Intelligence. There is no doubt, and that desk was basically about Afghanistan. It was not related to Osama bin Laden. Likewise, in the Central Intelligence Agency, there is desk about Pakistan, there is desk about Afghanistan, there is also desk about Iran. So it's not new thing that there have been desks on Osama bin Laden or on Afghanistan.
Desk, because this particular desk, he says, has only one.
Intelligence agencies are there. These agencies do maintain these desks, Middle Eastern desks,
Mr. Haider, let me bring Mr. Shafi in. Mr. Shafi, why is it that the same question that I asked Mr. Haider, why is the reaction a backlash? Why isn't the reaction more introspection and saying these are problems that we need to solve?
Look, there are many problems all countries have to resolve. Absolutely, which includes Pakistan, it includes the US. That's what we're talking about, these two countries, okay? We all have to sort out a lot of problems. All I'm saying is this, that if Carlotta Gall, and I know her, she's an honest journalist, I'm not saying she's not, but if her claims are debunked by none less than the spokesman of the National Security Council of the United States of America, if they are debunked inside of 24 hours of her book being excerpted, then we have to think about it. I am not saying we are clear, we are white as the driven snow. We are not. We have a lot of problems of our own. Yes, we need to sort things out. Yes, we need to sort our policies out. Yes, we have to sort things like strategic depth that we've been talking about for so long out. There are so many things we have to sort out. But in this instant case, I'm only talking about Ms. Gall's piece, which is debunked in its first 24 hours by the National Security Council itself. And if you say that America wants not to spoil relations with Pakistan, that is why the government doesn't want to step in and so on, it doesn't wash with me. It doesn't. If something is the truth, well, say it.
Okay.
If it isn't the truth, say it. If it's a lie, say it. You know, I mean, let's get on with this. We've gone on for too long with this charade, for God's sake. From the Afghan, this jihad that we went into stupidly as the frontline state. So there are so many things that we have to talk about.
Okay, so Dr. Lynch, whatever is it, put it out there, tell the truth. He's talking about the Pakistani government, the US government, the Afghan government. How much does that happen in international foreign diplomacy?
Well, let's just, state facts here. I mean, the facts are that truth is not black or white. Truth is not absolute, especially in the realm of international politics and the actions between states. And so to touch on a theme I acknowledged earlier, I think an important piece of Carlotta's work here is going to be to show both the United States and Pakistan how Afghanistan perceives Pakistan, how the government that's been in Afghanistan now for over a decade and has gone through 2 elections, and has established itself as a, Republic of Afghanistan, not an emirate of Afghanistan, feels about Pakistan. And you see that in 2 of those excerpts. You see that she is excerpting reports that have gone to Afghans that have gone to her. Okay, if nothing else, I think what Carlotta will be doing here is offering a mirror. This is how you look across the border to your Afghan friends. And the more you protest in Pakistan that it's not your problem, everybody else has these problems, et cetera, the more the Afghans, are embittered and feel that for the majority of them, those that are in Kabul, that have led and ruled Kabul, that have done the elections, not all Afghans, unfortunately, there are many alienated and disaffected Pashtuns, and I think that's acknowledged. But for the majority of Afghans, Pakistan is a problem. Pakistan is seen as the enemy. And indeed, a lot of what I read President Karzai, as being soured on with the United States is the fact the United States has not gone far enough, in his perspective, to really crack down on Pakistan and say, no, you must disassociate with the Taliban. No, you must. The United States, however, does not have enough evidence to say absolutely that Pakistan is underwriting the Taliban in all cases, much less bin Laden. And so here's where the problem is. It's not absolute. And I think if you go back and be more careful with what the statement from our National Security Council is, the statement is pretty banal. It's, we don't have evidence that would show any of these three excerpts to be absolutely, positively true. Okay. If we did, we would have done something about it years ago.
One thing that we do have the U.S. government officials saying, at least Admiral Mike Mullen, is that the Haqqani group is the veritable arm of the ISI, as he said in one of his briefings to the U.S. Congress. Dr. Reza Bukhari, I want to bring you in again. That was during General Pervez Musharraf's time. One of the things... Yes.
Can I come in here, please?
Yes, Mr. Shafi. You want to add in, and then Mr. Bukhari will come
yes,
to you.
Please.
Yes,
he said it, Admiral Mullen, who I respect very much as a great sailor that he was. He said it at his last appearance before Congress or the Senate, whatever it was. His last one. He never said it once.
He never said it during his tenure.
Special Command Chief.
Okay, very quickly. Very quickly, we're coming towards the end of the show. I'll come to you. I know you want to add something, but Dr. Reza Bukhari, very quickly, you're very close to General Pervez Musharraf. How does he feel about these allegations that Pakistani ISI was running a double game?
Aisha, reasonable people can disagree how you engage with Taliban within Pakistan and Taliban in Afghanistan. There is a public discourse and different people have different attitudes towards them. But one thing that we all universally agree that General Musharraf very strongly believes is that Al-Qaeda is nobody's friend. He, during his leadership of Pakistan, did all the heavy lifting in disrupting, dismantling, and helping defeat Al-Qaeda. More than 700 Al-Qaeda hardened terrorists that are in Gitmo were all captured by Pakistani forces.
But still supported the Haqqani group, at least according to the Americans.
The Haqqani groups are not Taliban, are not Al-Qaeda, but there is more for the Pakistan military and its spokesmen to really appropriately respond. But from a General Musharraf's perspective, as the leader of Pakistan, the interests of countries are very dynamic and they keep on changing. And you recalibrate and re-gauge your alliances and affiliations based on your own national interests. That is what all respectable countries in the world do. That is what the United States does, and that is what Pakistan did under the leadership of General Musharraf.
Okay, thank you very much. I know you want to add something to that, Dr. Land.
As an individual who worked for Admiral Mullen for his last 3 years in office, and who traveled frequently to Rawalpindi during that time, I encourage your readers to not accept at face value what Mr. Shafi has said, and I respect his position, and I know that's what people in Pakistan think, but I encourage you to go back and look at the transcripts and look at the comments made by Admiral Mullen on 2 visits, November 2010 and February 2011. There, he went and had press conferences with Dawn, with Express, and with others, and he basically said what he had been telling General Kiani behind closed doors, that there was too much interface with the Haqqani network, we knew too much about it, and that it could not stay secret, that it had to be dealt with. Now, this in the papers is more than signaling, more than fair signaling, and so it is incorrect to say that only in Admiral Mullen's last month in office did he come out and make some specious or unnamed claim. I mean, again, the United States government gave Pakistani civilian government a pass in that. Okay, this was a chance for Mullen to say what he knew and what we knew about how ISI and military were doing their business with the Haqqanis, and then give some top cover to PPP government. And this is the challenge in dealing with Pakistan, right? Yeah, the power beneath is not the same as the power elected, and that's the challenge.
Thank you so much. I mean, we're going to be talking about these issues again on April 4th. To remind you, Carlotta Gall, whose book we're talking about, will join us on April 4th. Send us your comments on Facebook. So sorry our time is up. This was such an interesting discussion.
Can I put in some little word?
You have 20 seconds, Mr. Shafi.
All right. Talking to this gentleman who just spoke, I'm so sorry.
Okay,
I don't know his name.
Okay, you did. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I didn't catch the name. However, if Admiral Mullen said what he said in the last week of his service,
Okay.
I did not hear this. I did not read this.
Well, thank you very much. So sorry our time.
You can find
so
it in the
Our
Pakistani
time is
Dawn.
up. Thank you so much. We'll join you again.